He turned the luxury sedan into a rolling fortress and changed the rules of survival forever. If you love stories about innovation born from violence, where engineering meets desperation in the shadow of Tommy guns and blood-soaked streets, make sure to follow, because what happened next rewrote the history of personal protection. Chicago, September 20th, 1926, 4:30 p.m. 10 Cadillacs and Lincolns roll down South Michigan Avenue. Windows drop. Thompson submachine gun barrels emerge. Over 1,000 rounds shred the facade of the Hawthorne Hotel. Glass explodes inward. Wood splinters. Plaster dust fills the air. Inside, Alphonse Capone drops to the floor. His bodyguards cover him. The shooting lasts 11 minutes. No one dies. But everything changes. Capone survives the 10-car drive-by ambush, orchestrated by Jaime Weiss and the North Side Gang. He walks out of the hotel unharmed. But the message is clear. Standard automobiles offer no protection against automatic weapons. The gangster wars of Prohibition Chicago have escalated beyond pistols and shotguns. Thompson submachine guns fire 600 rounds per minute. Capone needs more than bodyguards. He needs armor. Within weeks, Capone contacts Emil Denemark. Denemark owns a Cadillac dealership at 3860 Ogden Avenue on Chicago's South Side. He is related to Capone through marriage. He has connections to the underworld. His dealership has been bombed in 1927. He understands the business. Capone orders a 1928 Cadillac Series 3418 Town sedan, 7 passengers, L-head V8 engine, 341 cubic inches, 90 horsepower, 3-speed manual transmission, black and green finish. The car arrives at a local auto shop, not a factory, not a military contractor, a Chicago garage. No commercial armored cars exist for civilians in 1928. Mercedes-Benz and other European makers offer armored vehicles to state leaders and military personnel only. Vickers and Rolls-Royce build armored cars for armies, not gangsters. Capone must improvise. The shop begins modifications. Quarter-inch steel armor plates are mounted inside the doors. All 4 doors. Front and rear. The plating wraps the interior. 1-inch thick bulletproof glass replaces every window. Front windshield. Rear window. Side windows. 5-ply laminated glass. The weight climbs. The armor plating and glass weigh approximately 3,000 pounds. The stock Cadillac weighs roughly 5,000 pounds. The modified car now tips the scales at over 7,000 pounds. The engine requires upgrades. The standard 90 horsepower V8 cannot move the added weight effectively. Mechanics modify the 5.6-liter engine. Exact horsepower figures are not recorded, but the car reportedly reaches 110 miles per hour. Faster than any standard American sedan of the era. Faster than police vehicles. Speed equals survival. The side windows receive special modifications. They crank down partway. A 2-inch gap forms at the base, just wide enough for a Thompson machine gun barrel. The rear window is redesigned. It drops down completely. Capone's gunmen can fire at pursuing vehicles. The car transforms from transportation to mobile fortress. The exterior is painted dark green. Chicago police cars use the same color. Many police vehicles are Cadillacs. Capone's car blends in. A police siren mounts behind the front grille. Red flashing lights are installed. A police radio hides in the glove compartment. The radio monitors law enforcement frequencies. Capone knows when police move. He knows where they patrol. He knows when to disappear. The modifications cost thousands. Exact figures are not documented, but the investment is necessary. October 11th, 1926. Jaime Weiss dies outside Holy Name Cathedral. 10 North Side gunmen ambush him. 28 bullets hit Weiss and his bodyguards. The cornerstone of the cathedral is chipped by gunfire. The chip remains visible today. February 14, 1929. 7 members of the North Side Gang are murdered in the St. Valentine's Day massacre. Capone is suspected. The violence does not stop. Capone needs the armored Cadillac. He rides through Chicago's streets, protected by steel and glass. His bodyguards sit inside with Thompson submachine guns ready. The police siren clears traffic. The green paint provides camouflage. The bulletproof windows deflect small arms fire. The car serves its purpose. September 18, 1928. Capone attends the funeral of Antonio Lombardo at Mount Carmel Cemetery. Lombardo was president of the Union Siciliana. He was shot to death. Capone arrives in an armored vehicle. Newspaper photographs capture the car. It has drum-can-style headlights, special molded side lights, steel-plated sides, bulletproof glass. The car may be the Cadillac, or it may be a Cunningham. The details blur, but the armor is real. By 1928, Capone controls Chicago's underworld. He runs bootlegging operations, gambling, prostitution, protection rackets. He is public enemy number 1. The federal government targets him. The Treasury Department investigates his finances. Elliot Ness and the Untouchables raid his breweries. The Internal Revenue Service builds a tax evasion case. Capone needs protection from rivals and law enforcement. The 1928 Cadillac becomes legendary. It is the first known civilian armored car. No prior evidence exists of armored vehicles commissioned for private citizens. Military armored cars date back to 1902. F.R. Sims designs the first using a Daimler chassis. Vickers, Sons and Maxim builds the prototype. Rolls-Royce and Peugeot produce armored cars by 1920. All for military use, none for civilians. Capone breaks the pattern. He commissions armor for personal protection. Not for war, not for government. For survival on Chicago streets. The modification happens in a local garage, not a factory assembly line. The work is crude, but effective. The steel plates stop bullets. The glass withstands gunfire. The car functions. 1930 arrives. Capone orders a second armored car, a Cadillac Series 452 Imperial sedan. The V16 engine displaces 7.4 liters, 165 horsepower. The most powerful Cadillac ever built. Fleetwood modifies the car. Quarter-inch steel armor reinforces the body. 5-ply laminated glass on all windows. Round ports cut into the side windows, not for ventilation, for gun barrels. The rear window opens. Oil slicks and tire puncturing tacks can be dropped through slots cut into the floor. The modifications reportedly cost $30,000, equivalent to nearly $500,000 in 2021. The 1930 V16 represents the peak of Capone's armored fleet. The car weighs over 6,000 pounds. The 16-cylinder engine delivers smooth power. The armor is more sophisticated than the 1928 model. But time is running out. October 18, 1931. Capone is convicted of federal income tax evasion. November 1931. He is sentenced to 11 years. The appeals fail. May 4, 1932. Capone enters Atlanta U.S. Penitentiary. His empire collapses. The cars remain behind. The 1928 Cadillac is left with Emil Denmark. Denmark still holds the title. Capone never completed payments. The car sits in a Chicago garage. December 1931. Newspapers report that Cook County Jail Warden David Moneypenny used one of Capone's SV16 Cadillacs for a trip to Springfield. The license plates still carry May Capone's registration. Denmark claims he repossessed both V16s for non-payment. The statement protects Capone's reputation. The car still belongs to the gangster in the public mind. The Treasury Department seizes Capone's assets. Real estate, vehicles, personal property. The armored cars are included, but documentation is sparse. No clear chain of custody exists. October 1931. Intelligence unit reports show Capone attempting to sell his Florida home, 2 yachts, and vehicles for $150,000 cash. The V16 sedans make headlines. Federal agents notice. But the older 1928 Cadillac escapes attention. It remains hidden in Chicago. The 1928 Cadillac is sold. Harry Lebrecq purchases the car in May 1933 from Patrick Moore. Moore lives at 37 Grove Street, Rockville, Connecticut. Moore bought the car from an agent in Chicago. Spring 1932. The agent is believed to be Emil Denmark. Moore and his wife work with a traveling carnival. They exhibit the car during summer 1932. Patrons pay to see the Gangsters' armored vehicle. Gun ports, bulletproof glass. Police siren. The car is a sensation. Winter arrives. Moore tries to exhibit the car as a standalone attraction. The plan fails. May 1933. Lebrecq buys the car in Chicago. The price is not recorded. Lebrecq purchases it for Captain DeForest Morehouse, an English buyer. The car is shipped to New York and to England. Southend-on-Sea Amusement Park displays it. Later it moves to Blackpool Fun Fair in Manchester. Fake gangsters pose with fake Thompson guns. The crowds grow. The legend spreads. The U.S. government pressures Britain. Stop glorifying American gangsters. The car is removed from public display. February 1958. Dance hall owner Tony Stewart buys the Cadillac at auction for $510. He wants to resell it immediately. The market is weak. He cannot find a buyer in England. April 15, 1958. Toronto Globe and Mail publishes a photograph. The Capone Cadillac is being prepared for shipment to Canada. Harley Nielsen purchases it. Nielsen is a businessman from Todmorden, Ontario. He undertakes a comprehensive restoration. The car has not run in years. Most of the heavy armor plating is removed during restoration. The bulletproof glass remains. The drop-down rear window stays. The gun ports are preserved. The car becomes a showpiece. Historical, not functional. Mid-1960s, Nielsen sells the car to Niagara Falls Antique Auto Museum. The car sits on display for 6 years. November 20th, 1971. The museum liquidates its collection. Nearly 50 cars go to public auction. The Capone Cadillac draws the highest price, $37,000. The buyer is Peter Stranges of Niagara Falls, Canada. Stranges co-owns the cars of the Greats Museum. Newspapers publish auction stories. The articles mention Franklin D. Roosevelt. A myth begins. The story claims FDR used Capone's 1928 Cadillac after Pearl Harbor. December 8, 1941. Roosevelt allegedly rode in the armored car to deliver his day of infamy speech to Congress. The story spreads. Through books and news reports, it becomes accepted fact. The myth originates from Michael F. Riley. Riley served as FDR's Secret Service agent. 1947. He publishes a memoir titled Riley of the White House. The book describes the urgent need for an armored presidential car after Pearl Harbor. Riley claims the Treasury Department had impounded Capone's armored Cadillac. Budget restrictions prevented purchasing a new armored car. The government uses Capone's car. Riley writes that he arranged it with a phone call. The story has problems. Photographs from December 8, 1941 show FDR's motorcade leaving the White House for Congress. The presidential car is a late 1930s or early 1940s Cadillac. Hardtop, 4 doors. Not the 1928 series, 341A. The body style does not match. The year does not match. The 1928 Capone car was in England in 1941. It did not return to the United States until 1958. Riley's memoir also contains errors. He describes Capone's car as an open-roof convertible. He complains it is not a closed car. Capone never owned an armored convertible. Both his known armored cars were closed sedans. Gun ports and bulletproof glass require closed roofs. Open roofs leave occupants vulnerable to gunfire from above. Hand grenades, rifle shots. The description makes no sense. The Secret Service later claims a different car, a 1939 Packard, allegedly owned by Capone and seized by the government. But Capone was in prison from 1932 to 1939. He could not buy cars while incarcerated. November 1939. He leaves prison with the mental capacity of a child. Advanced syphilis has destroyed his brain. He travels by train from prison to Baltimore for medical treatment. Government agents transport him. No purchase of a 1939 Packard occurs. No seizure of a 1939 Packard is documented. The Roosevelt story is fiction. The 1928 Cadillac never transported FDR. The timeline does not work. The photographic evidence contradicts it. The car was overseas when Pearl Harbor occurred. But the myth persists in books, documentaries, and websites. February 1975. The Cars of the Greats Museum offers the 1928 Cadillac at auction in Atlantic City, New Jersey. They refuse an $81,000 bid. July 2012. The 1928 Cadillac goes to auction again. RM Auctions handles the sale. The estimate is high. The provenance is questioned. In 2008, Richard Capstrand comes forward. He is 93 years old. As a young boy, he helped his father install armor plating on a Cadillac in Chicago. He provides testimony. The connection to Capone gains credibility, but absolute proof remains elusive. The car sells for $341,000. The sale price references the engine displacement, 341 cubic inches. January 2021. Celebrity Cars Las Vegas lists the 1928 Cadillac for sale. Price, $1 million. The listing emphasizes the historical significance. First civilian armored car, owned by America's most infamous gangster. Used to survive the deadliest gang wars in U.S. history. The 1930 V16 Cadillac follows a different path. 1,932. The FBI impounds the car after Capone's conviction. It remains in U.S. custody for several years. The car is sold privately multiple times. Ownership records are incomplete. 2009. The V16 appears at auction. Bonham's Cars handles the sale. The car is described as formerly the property of Al Capone and the outfit, the Chicago Mob. Final sale price, $309,000. Both cars survive into the 21st century. Both carry the Capone legend, but questions remain. Did Capone actually own the 1928 Cadillac? Court records from his 1931 tax evasion trial document specific vehicle purchases. 2 McFarlane automobiles. One from 1924, traded in 1926 for a newer model. Both purchased at GC Auto, later McFarlane Motor Co., at 1217 Morse Avenue. C. Buxton testified to selling both cars to Capone. Cash down payments. Licenses registered under May Capone's name. May 18, 1928. Capone purchases a 7-passenger Lincoln sedan from S&L Motor Co. Price, $5,380. Another Lincoln in 1929. Another in 1930. None armored, none bulletproofed. Standard luxury vehicles. 1,931. 2 V16 Cadillacs purchased from Emil Denmark. Both registered under May Capone's name. Both repossessed for non-payment when Capone goes to prison. These are the documented cars. verified through financial statements. Witness testimony. IRS records. The 1928 armored Cadillac does not appear in these records. No sales receipt. No witness testimony. No financial documentation. The chain of custody begins in 1933 when Harry Lebret buys it from Patrick Moore. Moore claims he bought it from an agent in Chicago, believed to be Emil Denemark, but no paperwork confirms it. The connection to Capone rests on circumstantial evidence: Denemark's relationship to Capone, the armor modifications, the police siren and lights, the timing of the sale, the underworld connections. Emil Denemark remains the key figure. His Cadillac dealership serves Chicago's gangsters. His business is bombed in 1927. 1942. He is charged with selling cars without gas ration stickers. 1950. Congressional testimony from the investigation of organized crime in interstate commerce mentions Denemark. Mob figures buy Cadillacs from him. Paul Joey, Charles Campagna. Regular customers. Denemark maintains relationships with organized crime throughout his career. If anyone armored cars for Capone, it would be Denemark. September 1928. Newspapers photograph an armored car at Antonio Lombardo's funeral. Capone attends. The car has distinctive features: drum-kin headlights, special side lights, steel-plated sides, bulletproof glass. The car may be a 1928-1929 Cunningham, McFarlane, or Packard. All three manufacturers used drum-kin headlights. Fred Gerton, a newspaperman, visits Capone's Miami home for dinner in 1931. He mentions a Cunningham Cadillac with bulletproof features. A 1933 Internal Revenue Service report, signed by Frank J. Wilson, lists a Capone-owned Cunningham automobile. This may be the car photographed at the funeral, not the 1928 Cadillac. Morris Red Rudinsky adds to the confusion. Rudinsky claims he was Capone's friend and cellmate at Atlanta Penitentiary. He says he drove Capone in an armored Cadillac through Chicago. He authenticates cars for collectors. Paul Akins finds a 1930 Cadillac and asks Rudinsky to verify it. Rudinsky sits in the car. He claims it belonged to Capone. He says he drove Capone in it, but the timeline is wrong. Rudinsky was sentenced to Leavenworth Prison in December 1923, 25 years. He did not leave prison until 1944. He could not have driven Capone in Chicago during the 1920s. His authentication is worthless. But collectors believe him. The story spreads. Wichita Beacon publishes articles featuring Rudinsky and the alleged Capone cars. Rudinsky's inconsistent timeline is ignored. The legend grows stronger than the facts. Multiple Capone cars appear across America. Traveling sideshows display them. Promoters modify ordinary Cadillacs. Add fake bullet holes. Install fake armor. Claim Capone ownership. May 23, 1934. Columbus Telegram exposes fake Capone cars. But the scams continue. By 1929, some states make private ownership of armored vehicles illegal. Capone's window closes. After the St. Valentine's Day massacre, he abandons armored cars. He relies on bodyguards instead. Heavy security details. Multiple guards. He leaves Chicago frequently. His Miami estate becomes his primary residence. When he returns to Chicago for special occasions, he borrows armored vehicles. Or he travels surrounded by police escorts. The armored Cadillacs are no longer necessary. The historical record supports one conclusion. Capone's 1928 Cadillac, if it truly belonged to him, was likely the first civilian armored car in the world. No earlier examples exist. Military armored cars predated it by decades. But civilian ownership of customized bulletproof vehicles begins with Capone. The modifications happen in a Chicago garage, not a factory. The armor is improvised, not engineered. The purpose is criminal, not military. But the innovation is real. The car survives because the armor made it special. Without the bulletproof glass and steel plating, it would have been scrapped decades ago. Instead, it crosses the Atlantic twice. It appears in museums on 2 continents. It sells at auction for hundreds of thousands of dollars. It becomes myth and history simultaneously. The line between the two blurs over 90 years, but the car remains. Heavy glass, thick steel, gun ports, police lights, a rolling monument to the violence of Prohibition Chicago, a weapon that could not fire back, only endure.